Hello everyone, my name is Trevor Bragg, here to give you everything you need to know about living in Phoenix, and today we are talking about the best and worst things about living in Peoria. Before we get started, I want to let you know we have this free Moving to Phoenix guide with everything that you should know before moving to the Phoenix area. I moved here about 6 years ago and I wish I had this guide, that's why I made it. It is free, feel free to reach out, my email and number on the screen. Alright, let's get into the pros and cons of living in Peoria, Arizona. Con number one, we'll start with the cons because that's really what people care about. People talk about all the great things about different cities. Let's talk about the worst things. And to me, a big con about the city of Peoria is they have a lot of desert landscape there. Now, I know that's in general the Phoenix area, that is true, but I do find Peoria to be even a little bit more deserty. And I think part of that is a lot of the communities are separate kind of parcels of land that are surrounded by desert themselves. And not only this, but also a lot of front yards and backyards just tend to have that desert landscape. It's extremely popular there to have, cactus and rock and dirt in the front yard. And you can make it look really nice, don't get me wrong, but it's still a desert landscape. There's not a lot of like lush green areas where you can find some of those, in Phoenix or in Scottsdale, the Biltmore area. Those can be a little bit more lush and green. In Peoria, you don't see that as much. It's definitely a little more deserty. A lot of people have desert backyards, so it's, your backyard, your fence, and then it backs up to some desert area. So I think that's a con. It's not the prettiest of areas. It's definitely extremely well maintained. Don't get me wrong there, but it does have a more desert landscape. The first pro is probably the location. And now I know it is a little bit further away from downtown Phoenix area, but you have pretty easy access to the freeways. So the 101 and the 303, depending on where you live in Peoria. If you're in the southern part, the 101 is really easy access. You can get to downtown. You can get to Scottsdale, Tempe extremely easily using that 101 freeway. That's extremely convenient. And in my experience, it tends to be not horrible traffic, where other freeways like the 10 and 17, they tend to be a little bit more higher traffic areas. Now, if you live in northern Peoria and you want to be able to get, all the way across to the Scottsdale area, you're probably going to use the 303 down to the 17, the 101 to Scottsdale, which again, those are probably going to be less traffic areas, which is nicer. If you were to live, somewhere in the middle of Phoenix, you're probably only using heavily trafficked freeways. So it is further away miles-wise, but the freeways itself are going to be fairly convenient. And in Peoria, you're really close to some easy access freeways like the 303 and the 101. A con for some people could be that they have kind of a cookie-cutter neighborhood feel to it. I have seen this in myself. There's a lot of master plan communities, which are really well-run communities, but they have a little bit more cookie-cutter style. And all that is, and really the biggest con of it, is that your exact home, the same floor plan, the same look on the outside, you could see quite a few of those in your neighborhood. Usually not your neighbor, but a few doors down or right across the street, someone may have the exact same floor plan as you, and they tend to not have too much discrepancy between the both of them. And really, you're not going to get too much variance until you probably get to that $1 million price range. That's when you're going to see more of the custom homes, the different feel. So a con for a lot of people is that it has the little bit of a cookie cutter feel to it. Although some people like that style, it's modern, it definitely appeals to a majority of people. Your house isn't going to be too separated from the one a few doors down. On the flip side of that, I think a huge pro to Peoria, and maybe the number one reason I recommend it to people, is the different neighborhoods that they have. They're extremely well set up for families. Not only are they master plan communities where they have sidewalks and parks all throughout it, but just in general, the communities are really good at focusing on families. So they have events for families like a movie night in the park, or the city of Peoria just built a huge Paloma Park up top, which that park is ginormous. It's incredible. They have a lake in it you can fish in. They've got splash pad. I mean, there's a lot of parks in Peoria. I really think Paloma is amazing, but it's definitely targeted towards the family lifestyle where they have splash pads. They have, the baseball, softball fields, basketball courts, all that type of stuff. And so it definitely has a very family-oriented style, and the people that tend to be moving there are usually young families that are looking for a nice place to raise their kids. On the reverse side of that as well, a big con to the Peoria area for a lot of people is that it does not have any nightlife. I mean, almost non-existent. Now, it's not like a middle of nowhere boring town, but you're not going to have any nightclubs. You're not going to have too much of a bar scene. It's really going to be, you have your restaurants, you have some things to do, but really there's not like a ton going on at night, especially compared to some other areas in the Phoenix area like downtown Phoenix, and nothing like Tempe and Scottsdale. Those are going to be your main nightlife areas, and those are probably 45 minutes from most of Peoria, so you're not going to be too close. The closest nightlife you might have is the Westgate area, and if you live in South Peoria, that's probably only about 15 minutes from you, but anywhere else, central to North Peoria, that's probably 30 minutes away from you, and there is, some good bars and things to do at night there, but it's definitely nothing compared to the Scottsdale side, so it's going to be a distance to get to the nightlife. And again, a similar thing to the family vibe is that a pro for it is, although they don't have a nightlife, they do have a lot of things to do during the day. They have a lot of great outdoors activity. Like I said, they have parks all throughout. I mean, every master plan community has a few parks. They have some huge city parks like that Paloma one I mentioned, and they tend to be extremely well taken care of. And there's just a lot of good things to do outdoors. They have the hiking trails. They have a great biking trail that goes all throughout the community. There's like shopping centers, movies, different things like that. It's not the nightlife style of things, but it tends to be the type of things that families want to go to, like a theater, like the P83 area where there's a mall, there's shopping, and there's restaurants. So definitely you can still have a fun day in the Peoria area, and it's just kind of more targeted for that family style of living. The next con is going to be that since it is a more deserty town, especially the more northern you go, a lot of the communities are surrounded by desert, and that brings across desert animals like coyotes, like rattlesnakes, like scorpions. You're going to have more critters in the area, and that would freak my wife out like crazy. From my experience, from my client's experience, it tends to be only the houses that have backyards that back up to the desert that it's going to be an issue. So even if you're in a community that's kind of on its own, it has, surrounded by desert, that community is, the street right across, or the house right across the street from the house with the desert backyard, it's not going to have too much of an experience. It's going to have to climb those fences, get all the way over to you. Not very likely. And the ones that are even backed up to the desert, not to say that it doesn't happen, but it's rare. It's not like every single day you have a rattlesnake in your backyard. Maybe once or twice a year you come across some wildlife that you wouldn't want to find too close to your backyard. And there's different ways you can remedy that, build a bigger fence or something like that. But that's definitely a con for people. I know my wife would be extremely scared to see any of those creatures, no matter the size. It could be an ant walking into our house, and she would be freaking out. A pro to the Peoria area, again, pushing this family lifestyle, is that it's going to have higher rated school districts compared to the rest of the Phoenix area, especially their charter and private schools are extremely well recommended in that area. They have some really high-end ones. A little bit issue with there is that they're either going to be difficult to get into or more expensive. Obviously, private schools are going to be expensive, and public and charter schools you're going to be able to go to for free. But obviously, the highest recommended charter schools, more difficult to get into. But even their public school system tends to be in the upper half compared to the rest of the Phoenix area. So you do have some better school districts there compared to some surrounding cities. So that's definitely a huge pro for a lot of families thinking of moving to the Phoenix area and focusing on Peoria. The last con for Peoria that I'll mention is that it's getting more expensive, and its prices just compared to the surrounding cities are going to be more expensive, mostly because of the pros that I mentioned. A lot of people are trying to move to Peoria. It's a popular spot, especially for families. Good school district, great things to do for families. It's a more quieter lifestyle. It's a little further from the city, so you don't get the hustle and bustle, a little bit less traffic than, Phoenix, Scottsdale, Glendale, those type of places. And the homes tend to be newer and more modern. And so with all of that, prices just tend to be more expensive. The median home sale in Peoria is $550,000, and compared to the Phoenix area, which is $500,000, and then Glendale, which is $460,000, it is going to be more expensive than some of those more central cities, but it also is going to probably be a newer style house and a better overall master planned community. So it's a little bit give and take. And like I said, since there's a lot more pros to Peoria than some of those surrounding cities, it tends to be a really popular spot for people to move to, which drives prices up. Lastly, a huge pro to the Peoria area is Lake Pleasant, and this is just north of Peoria. The closest city you can get is North Peoria. You could be 10 or 15 minutes away from this lake, and you can do everything you can want at a lake at Lake Pleasant. Not only just boating, the jet skis, different things like that, but you have kayaking, paddleboarding. They have this cool obstacle course you can do. It's usually for kids, but I think myself would enjoy that very much. They also have a huge water slide that you can, rent out for the day, like pay for an hour and go down it as many times as you can. You can go on dinner cruises. You can rent a pontoon boat. Tons of fun things to do, and it's in Lake Pleasant, really the closest and largest lake to the Phoenix area that you would want to go spend a day at. So if you're into the outdoors lake style at all, it's a very fun time, and they have everything you can imagine. And most of Peoria is probably, at most, if you're the farthest south of Peoria, you're probably 30, maybe 40 minutes away from Lake Pleasant. Or if you're in North Peoria, you could be 10 or 15 minutes away. So if you have a boat, if you're into that, North Peoria is a great spot for you. Those are the pros and cons of living in Peoria. If you're thinking to move into the Peoria area, I'd be happy to help. I'm a realtor here. You can reach out to me if you just have some questions, or if you're thinking of moving. My number and email on the screen. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos like this.